Leadership Preparation Webinar Series, Let's Land That Job, Part 1. The Office of Leadership Development and School Improvement is comprised of an executive director reporting to the assistant state superintendent, coordinators for school improvement, academic improvement, and leadership development, as well as leadership specialists. Our office has three main goals: fostering the growth of effective leaders, ensuring valid and reliable evaluations, and raising the quality of education. We provide targeted professional learning experiences and resources to equip current and future leaders with the skills and knowledge required for successful school and district leadership. We oversee the development and implementation of Maryland's teacher and principal evaluation system. Training, guidance, and support is provided to local school systems in the implementation of fair and valid evaluations. Lastly, we provide customized professional learning experiences and support informed by data and grounded in effective practices to improve school performance. To earn continuing professional development credit, in order to receive 1 credit, you must view 5 webinars, including Part 1 and Part 2. Additionally, you will complete 3 hours of experiences per webinar to include pre-work, participant guides with the webinar, and extension activities. In order to receive 2 CPD credits, you must watch all the webinars in the series, including Part 1 and Part 2. Then you will complete 3 hours of experiences per webinar to include any pre-work, participant guides with the webinar, and extension activities. In order to submit your materials, please complete the Google form found in the description below the video. For this webinar, we partnered with Glenn Max McGee, President of Hazard Young Attia and Associates.
Let's look ahead to what we hope to accomplish in the next half hour or so. You can see the expectations and the resource materials. We do want you to complete this session in one sitting. I hope the time goes quickly for you, and that, again, you will find it highly engaging as well as highly informative. And again, following this session, we do want you to produce something. We want you to produce your own cover letter and your own resume based on what you learned. There are resource materials in the Dropbox, and you'll need to use some of these materials. You'll need to use the resumes for some analysis and the participant's guide as well. Moving on, let's look at what we want to accomplish during this session. Our primary goal is to help you get a job, to help you land that job. So you're going to learn how to use the components of both an effective cover letter and a resume to distinguish yourself as a highly viable candidate who districts are seeking. We want you, secondly, to demonstrate the ability to prepare a high-quality cover letter and resume of your own. And finally, we want you to be able to identify key differences between an excellent, mediocre, and poor resume and cover letter, and you'll have some interactive experience to do just that. Here's our agenda today, and you can read this yourself. The first will be kind of like a Family Feud. Well, I don't claim to be a game show host. I do have access to a network of over 100 superintendents, and we survey them about the qualities that they're looking for when they hire a principal. We'll get to that more on that in a moment. Then we're going to talk about how to write a cover letter that gets read and not put in the circular file. And we're going to share how to prepare resumes to get interviews. And a part of that will involve an activity of actually rating revenues. But first, I just wonder if you really, really want to become a principal or really, really want to become an administrator of any type in public education. I mean, just look at this ad. Of course, it should say men and women, or women and men wanted for hazardous journey, small wages, bitter cold, long months of complete darkness, constant danger, safe return is doubtful, but honor and recognition in case of success. Well, as much as that sounds like an ad for a principal, it was really Ernest Shackleton's ad seeking voyagers and explorers to discover the South Pole. So, like a journey to the Antarctic, a journey to the principal's position can be full of perils, but certainly there are many rewards that come with doing a great job. As I mentioned a few moments ago, I surveyed 100, actually 109 superintendents about the professional and personal qualities they would like to see when they hire a principal. So take 30 seconds and jot down 3 professional qualities and 3 personal characteristics that superintendents want to see when they hire a principal. You can ask yourself if you possess them later, but write down what you think are 3 professional and 3 personal characteristics and qualifications. Take another 10, 15 seconds or so. And let's see what they said, and let's see if you have any or all. So here's what superintendents want in their principals. On the professional side, they want someone who's bright. Being smart matters. They want a clear communicator, both verbally and in writing. Somebody who can speak clearly and concisely, somebody who can write with proper grammar and can write with power and elegance. They want a principal who recognizes what good teaching looks like, how teachers can inspire and engage students. They want the teacher who can be not just a good manager, but also a good facilitator. They are looking for principals that are student focused, that put students first, that walk the talk and have relevant experience and can demonstrate that they truly do put the interest of all students first and have high expectations for every student. Superintendents want someone who leads by example, who has the honesty, ethics, morals, and integrity, the work ethic to really be an extraordinary professional and lead by example. Follow through is another key trait, and I hope that several of you put that, because I think we've all experienced in our own teaching careers or education careers, both really great principals and hopefully not many, if any, not so great principals, but the great ones distinguish themselves by following through, by delivering on their promises, by having realistic expectations, and certainly not by over-promising and under-delivering. Superintendents want a principal that creates a positive, supportive culture. They like an optimist. They like somebody who's positive, who's upbeat, who's supportive of the teachers, the students, the families, who understands them. And we'll get to that on the personal side in a moment. They're looking for a professional problem solver, and in some cases, a problem finder, someone who can identify a problem, look at alternative solutions, and find the solution that is the best one, and oftentimes make a tough decision to solve that problem. And what I am hearing, and what my colleagues are hearing now more than ever, is they want a unifier. Superintendents want a unifier, especially in these turbulent times when people want kids in school, people want kids at home. They're looking for someone who can really bring all sides together, who can work with union and management, who can work with diverse parent populations, diverse student populations, and really be a unifier. Those are the professional qualifications. As far as the personal ones, ideally, you had 3 of these on your list. Being trusting and trustworthy, both of those matter. They want a principal who is trustworthy, of course, who they can trust, but they want someone who trusts students, who assumes positive intentions, I think is another way to put it. Someone who's honest and ethical, who actively listens. In the words of Stephen Covey, someone who seeks first to understand and then be understood. They want a principal who's healthy, who's likable, who exhibits grace under pressure. All these really are kind of wrapped up in self-care. You have to look out for yourself to have a healthy lifestyle. You have to have that kind of optimistic outlook that draws people to you. And you have to be able to, under pressure, respond with grace and dignity and not immediately assume the bureaucratic crouch or a defensive posture. And of course, they want someone who is present and immersed in the school district and culture. And there's really no substitute for that. They're looking for someone who loves being in the school, who loves being at the grocery store and talking to parents, who's very comfortable being out and about in the community, who appears at all the after-school activities, large and small, and is approachable in all those different settings. So that's what they want. So how do we put that into a cover letter? Because a cover letter is about fulfilling the needs of what your employer wants, not what you want. And that is really an important mindset to retain throughout this. Glassdoor.com, which really is more for private sector jobs than school district jobs. So we have used it for school districts when we're hiring superintendents, district administrators, and principals. This is their advice. Treat a cover letter as a chance to make a human connection, not just a formality. What we would like to know as employers, what gets you excited about this job? What charges you up? Why do you want our job? What are you doing that would make a contribution that's interesting? What should we know about you that's not in your resume? And we're going to get to that more in just a moment. These are all great points to touch on in a letter. And so cover letters that get read, and believe me, a lot of them don't. In fact, I was working with a school board when we were hiring superintendents. There were 7 board members, and as my colleague and I are presenting this slate and the applicants, one of the board members said, it's kind of like the emperor's new clothes moment, said, did anybody else just get tired of reading these cover letters? They all sound alike. Another board member raised her hand and said, I quit after reading the first 2. And another board member said, yeah, I just threw most of them away. In fact, there was only 1 or 2 that I even thought were worth reading. And so how can we get your cover letter read? Here are 6 points. The cover letters that get read have a service mindset. What that means is you are looking what you can give to the district, not what the district can give to you. So you want something that shows that you are ready to get to work for them. They want a cover letter that's customized to the schools and districts' needs. Your cover letter has to show that you've done your homework, you've done your preparation, that you are ready to come work for the school and the district the very next day. Cut and pasted cover letters are so easy to tell. They're so generic, and too often they have incredible mistakes. We have actually had cover letters for large urban school districts in the Northeast, and an individual had applied for a large district in the Southeast and forgot to change the name of the district. He did not get an interview. In a cover letter, you want to use numbers and narratives as evidence of your accomplishments. Again, have some recent and relevant experience that as the previous slide said, shows both your interest and makes you interesting, but also reflects your ability. Too often we want to just use numbers. We improved test scores by 4.68%. We passed a $39.5783 million bond issue. People are excited about stories more than numbers, and we think it's wise to use both numbers and narrative in a cover letter because they'll get read. Of course, as you learn back in high school English, maybe middle school English, the most important thing you can do is to have a hook, a powerful, memorable opening 2 or 3 sentences. That is critical because if they are just, hey, I am seeking a job as a principal in your district and I have been a great teacher, nobody's going to read anything beyond that. It has to be powerful and memorable, those first 2 or 3 sentences. We'll give you some practice with this in a few moments. Finally, they need an authentic close that is personal. And of course, have somebody else proofread for grammatical errors and typos. I can't tell you how many proofreading mistakes I have made. Even as state superintendent, hand delivering a letter to the governor, I was reading it as I'm sitting in the governor's office, said, had to turn around and run back to my office. The Illinois State Board of Education printed thousands of pencils to hand out at the state fair about the new Illinois state standards, and standards was misspelled. There was a typo. So it did not enhance our reputation. So these are really tricks of the trade for cover letters that get read. Where do cover letters go to die? In the wastebasket. Cover letters that don't get read, they're just a summary of a resume. I. Every sentence, or 4 out of 5 sentences, starts with I. They are written in passive voice. And if you don't recall the difference between active and passive voice, read up on it. You need to write an active voice because passive voice is really, it's called passive because it's not interesting. And too often it passes the blame as well. We talked in the last slide about overusing numbers. You know, it's great that you have some evidence of your success, but don't just limit it to numbers. And please, enough with the edge you speak. Systems thinker. I can't tell you how many system thinkers letters have not gotten read. Make it authentic. Use your own words. Nobody likes jargon. You don't like jargon. So don't put it in your letters. Use the word use instead of utilize. I mean, just common things like that. A lot of cover letters that go beyond a page in length don't get read unless they're super interesting. And so if you have a great opening, have a really interesting, relevant cover letter, you can go a little over a page, but it better be really good. General rule of thumb is to keep to a page. And anything that's generic we talked about is not going to get read. And anything with spelling and grammar errors will end up where all cover letters go to die, the circular file. Word choice matters. When we see this poor guy asleep reading cover letters, well, that's because the letters he read were those words to avoid over on the right-hand side. Out of the box, proactive. I'm a thought leader, a strategic thinker, a team player, and other educational jargon or just contain fluff. I am very, very, very excited about this job. Long strings of fluffy adjectives. Those will not serve you well. But words like what you have achieved and accomplished, what you launched, what you created, improved, what you increased on the upside, negative things that were decreased under your leadership, anything you have led or managed, problems you have resolved, all those words on the left are really the types of words that get people's attention because they know that you're the type of person that's going to make a contribution to that school and to that district. So include some of those words on the left, avoid those words on the right. So let's look at your participants guide. And we're going to go through several examples here. And I'm going to give you a few moments to read through these examples as I do a little time check. There's 7 examples here. And what we're going to ask, these are the opening letters. Would they be read further? Would you continue reading them as a superintendent, or would you reject them? So example 1, I'm just going to read the first 2 sentences of each, and I know you can pause this at any time so you can finish reading through the rest of the example. Example 1, I'm writing to express interest in the elementary principal position. For the past 22 years, I have worked for the X County Public Schools. During this time, I had the privilege of teaching 1st, 4th, and 5th grade at Y Elementary. I also served as the reading specialist for 2 years. In 2012, I was promoted to assistant principal. Read or rejected? Example 2. Recently, a student interviewed me for a special project, and she asked, "What is a famous quote that inspires you?" I told her there were several, but the first that popped into my head was, "Seek first to understand and then be understood." With Covey's words in mind, I spent several hours researching your schools, district, and community. With that understanding, I am now writing with abundant enthusiasm to apply for the principalship. You can read the rest. Example 3. This letter is to express interest in the administrative position of principal at X, advertised on the district's website in November. The position represented a desired goal that my career has been building towards to this point. I feel at this time that X would benefit from my vision, leadership, and modern thinking. Example 4. I want to express my enthusiasm and interest in a leadership role as principal within your district. I'm deeply devoted to the well-being of our future and will work diligently to help all students every day. Read more or reject? Example 5. My career began over 10 years ago, inspired by 2 things: my vision to be an educational change agent and a professional moral compass directed by the famous quote of the prominent orator Frederick Douglass: "It is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men." Would you read more or reject it? Example 6. This is a longer one, so I'll just read the first 2 or 3 sentences again. I'm writing to apply for the elementary position at X school. I have often considered the elementary level for my administrative career. I earned my teaching credential for multiple subjects while working as a support administrator and on-site substitute in elementary school for 3 years. We implemented the new LA curriculum in which we were fully trained. I supported teachers in the classroom as well as teaching myself, so on and so forth. And the final example, it is with great enthusiasm that I submit my application and interest for the position of principal of X school. As a former Y County Teacher of the Year with experience at the district level in the curriculum department, my diverse skills, qualifications, and personal relationships with teachers in the community make me an asset to your school and district. All right, read or reject. Let's see what actually happened, because these are literally real world cover letters for individuals that apply for principal jobs. Well, example one got rejected. Why? Pretty much every sentence started with I, and it was just a repetition of the resume. Example two seemed a bit fluffy, abundant enthusiasm, spent several hours researching the district, but it showed the individual was a listener and a thoughtful reader. And it led with a student focus, the student interview. This letter was for an administrative job in a affluent, highly achieving, mostly white district. The individual not only got an interview, but got the job. Example three did not get the job. There was a typo. And, frankly, the first three sentences were pretty boring. Example four, although it led with two I sentences, and every day should probably be 2 words, what happened, it mentioned students, it showed work ethic, and it sounded authentic. This individual not only got the interview, she also got the job. The fifth was written for principalship in a highly diverse district. I hope anyway, you all agree that this letter got read. Not only did it get read, this individual also got the job. Example 6, the long introductory paragraph. Again, really it's just a repetition of a resume, and the individual, I don't even know if the letter got read. The individual did not even get an interview. And the resume wasn't read because it was in the cover letter. The final example, again, this individual got her resume read, got an interview, and got the job. And as you can see, it shows unique qualifications, a teacher of the year, and a real commitment to contributing to the district, being an asset to the district. So those are some good openings, 2, 4, 5, and 7. And I don't think you can use them without attribution, but I hope that this has given you an idea, enable you to differentiate between a quality cover letter and one which is less so. The cover letter is probably the most important part of the application because it is what gets read first. At HYA, here's what we look for. There's a picture of a cover letter, which just really a nice visual appeal. I can't even read what it says, but it doesn't matter because it's going to be easy to read the way the paragraphs are broken up and the bullet points. So you want to think when you write your cover letter, it really should have a significant visual appeal in addition to the substance. Substance, of course, evidence of leadership, relevant experience, knowledge of the school district to which you're applying, an accomplishment or two, and most importantly, your authentic voice. Make it your voice, not someone else's. I can't tell you enough how much authenticity matters. We rank all cover letters as 3, 2, 1s. And those ones which I shared the last examples as the individuals got the job, those all rated 3s. And of course, style, readability, spelling and grammar, length, and voice is an active voice versus passive voice. So let's move on from cover letters to resume. So let's assume you have written just an exceptional cover letter, whether it's the HR director, the superintendent, a board of education, a search committee. They've read your cover letter and they say, well, I want to read more. Let's look at this individual's resume. And so what distinguishes a good resume? What's going to get you the interview? Not just a cover letter, you need the resume as well. And so what makes a great resume? For every job you list, include up to 5 specific accomplishments related to your leadership responsibility. No more than 5. So many people write these interminable lists of bullet points. And I'll tell you, every job for which I've applied, I've never listed more than 3. Maybe once I listed 4 for a single job. Your resume should have 3 strategic references: the title, email, and phone. And by strategic, I mean related to the position for which you're applying. If you're applying for a principal's job, you probably want one from your superintendent or your immediate supervisor. You probably want one from a teacher and one from a parent. Number 3, just list your completed education degrees and be accurate. It's all right to list a PhD in progress, but I think you just ought to, a lot of people do that. But what that says to me is you're going to want to finish the degree. And I don't really want you to finish the degree. I want you to work hard as my principal. So I say, you're fine, just write down the degrees you've completed. A, B, D of a dissertation is not a degree. We actually have people writing ABDs, and those resumes get tossed. The individual will never get an interview. List all certifications. Now, unlike your education, if a certification is in process, if you've applied for it, that's absolutely fine to list. Other tips for resumes that will get you an interview. List additional activities that reflect your desire and ability to make a contribution. Maybe it's coaching. Maybe it's a community leadership position. Maybe you're part of a charitable foundation board. Maybe you've led a fundraising campaign for a school or, again, some kind of nonprofit entity. When we've hired people in resort communities and mountain cultures, I'll tell you, it was an eye-opener when people put on their resumes, I've been a fly fishing guide. I have been a whitewater rafting guide. I was a member of my college ski patrol, something like that. Anything that reflects the culture, activity that reflects the culture of the community and the school to which you apply is a plus. Of course, publications, presentations, and recognitions or awards are really important. A lot of times that will be the difference between getting an interview and not. If you don't have any, don't worry about it. But this is not the time to be modest and humble. This is the time just to be straightforward. If you've made a big presentation at a regional conference, a state conference, be proud of it, put it down. If you have a blog post that got some attention, put it down. If you got an award from Rotary Club, Kiwanis, the YMCA, put it down. And of course, make sure it's spelling and grammar are error-free and keep it to 2 pages. Unlike cover letters, people will not really read much after 2 pages. So keep it focused and really incorporate all 8 of those points. Resumes that don't get an interview, oh my, I'm laughing because number 1 is a killer. So many people feel they have to put an objective at the top, an objective that says, my objective is to get a job as a principal. I know that. You wouldn't apply for the job if that wasn't an objective. My advice is just leave it out. Some people have really good objectives about serving districts and serving students and teachers and families. That's acceptable, but please don't put your objective is to get yourself a job. If you have a long list of job responsibilities for every job you've had, don't list it. Again, we want to see as superintendents, as HR directors, when we hire principals, when we hire administrators, directors, we want to see what you have accomplished, not what your job responsibilities are. We want to see what you've led, what you've launched, what you've achieved, not that you supervise 30 people, not that you manage a budget of whatever, $2 million. It doesn't matter. What matters is what you have achieved and accomplished, not what your job description says. We don't want to read a long list of all your special talents. Again, we want to see proof and evidence of it. We don't need you to list it. Some of us who are a little longer in the tooth, we like 12-point font and 14-point font. 9s and 10s don't cut it with us. So be big and bold. If you do have an employment gap, you will need an explanation there. And we'll talk about how to address those when we get to phase 2 in an interview. But you can put, took it for family leave is fine, to take care of an ailing parent, have a year off to pursue an alternative career. I personally took a year to write a dissertation way back in '86. I took a gap year, and I took a year to start an independent school because I wanted to start a school from scratch. So those are kind of big gaps in my own personal resume, but you need to at least tell what you did during that year. And be honest, be authentic. And don't be too stylistic, fancy schmancy fonts and colors. When I'm going to copy your resume, it's going to come out in black and white anyway. So just make it black and white and keep the same font throughout. You can use italics and boldface if you really want to, but don't get caught up in stylistic stuff. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to ask you to pause it for a few moments and pull out your resumes, A through G. These are all realistic resumes of people that applied for principal jobs. And they have been significantly redacted, so there's no identifying information. So I'm going to ask that you just pause this video and that you take time to look through each of these and rate as interviewed or rejected. All right, well, welcome back. Let's see how you did, and let's see what happened. So resume A was interviewed, and she got the job as a high school principal. Though there were some problems with the resume, maybe a lot of bullet points. In fact, I was one who hired this principal. We thought she was worthy to interview. And while we didn't give this our highest resume rating, we said it was acceptable. We interviewed her, and she ended up getting a high school principal's job. Resume B, however, sent this for the same job, and this individual was rejected. We did not really see anything that excited us about in this individual's resume. Resume C, this was an application for a middle school position. She got hired. She got interviewed and hired. This had a really kind of nice look to it, kind of a different look from traditional resumes. But we were impressed by what she wrote as far as describing herself as an educational leader. And while she didn't have bullet points, her narratives were really clean and easy to read. And we thought she really did a nice job of connecting with what we needed. In fact, her areas of expertise were really tied to what the district culture was. And you'll notice that her publications and presentations were really nicely done. She had listed 5 there. Resume D, interesting. She applied for a job in one district and didn't get it, though she did get interviewed. And a second district interviewed and got the job. And again, we liked this resume. It was very crisp. It was very clear. We actually liked her philosophy statement, her references. Notice she listed 3 references on the second page were exactly what we were looking for. They were great strategic references that we could contact immediately, which we did. And Vicki is still a current middle school principal doing a great job. Resume E was rejected, though we liked the readability of it. We liked the big font. It really didn't show particularly any accomplishments. A lot of it was just a listing of what the individual did as far as a job in various positions. So again, we're looking for someone who has demonstrated specific achievement and accomplishments. Same thing for resume F, applied for a middle school job. This one was pretty much rejected outright. Really didn't talk about any contributions that he had made. At the end, you'll see, a lot of these jobs aren't even relevant to the principal job. He listed every job he's ever had. Some of them aren't even really relevant to being a principal. And on the last page, he says references furnished on request. That's generally a killer. We're not going to take the time to ask you for references. So put them on there. Resume G, this resume was really too busy. Frankly, I didn't think it was worthy of an interview. My hiring team did, because there were, in all the bullet points, there were some significant accomplishments. But this was really busy, really complicated. I wasn't crazy about it, but again, the interview team thought that there were enough important accomplishments, and there were certainly many there. So the individual was interviewed and did not get the job. And part of the reason, interesting, she did not get the job because she interviewed like she wrote, on and on and on and on. I think we have a standard 8 interview questions an hour, and we got through maybe 5 of them. So that's what happened. Eager to hear how you all did on that as well. Again, as we close out this session, we at HYA rank resumes 3, 2, 1, high, acceptable, or deficient. Again, not every one of those resumes that we interviewed was ranked high. A couple actually we ranked acceptable, resume A, for example. But, that's sometimes all it needs to get interviewed. Again, here's a visually appealing resume. This is a stock resume off the internet. So this is not anybody's credential. And then we look for substance of leadership accomplishments, relevant experience. Is your education, are your contributions aligned with our community expectations? Are you certified, or is your certification in progress? Can we get a hold of your references? And of course, we want to make sure your resume is readable, that there are no grammatical errors, and it's complete. So that ends session 1. I hope now that you have the information that you need to really write a high quality cover letter, and I'd be very interested in seeing some of yours. work on those first few sentences, make that tight closing, have those relevant accomplishments and experiences. And as for your resume, get those 2 pages tight. Again, use those active verbs: launch, achieve, accomplish, generated, things that show what you've done and what you can contribute to a district. List some references, be proud of your publications and awards. And so with that, I will leave my phone number and email up here just for a moment, and a little about me and who I am, more from the pictures and the verbiage. And really look forward to hearing from you and wish you all the best on your journey. And as difficult as it may seem at times, as it was for Shackleton's crew, there certainly are so many moments of reward and recognition, but the best rewards come from what you do for your students, for your teachers, for your staff, for the families, for the school, for the greater community that you will serve. I'm so proud of you. And again, wish you all the best. I know you'll be outstanding leaders. So get working on those cover letters that will get read and those resumes that get you an interview. And I'll see you for session 2, where we talk about interviews that will get you that job. So let's work together and land that job. Bye now.
The Office of Leadership Development and School Improvement would like to thank you for participating in the Leadership Preparation virtual webinar series. We hope you found this particular webinar informative and beneficial to your work as you prepare as a leader. To access the webinar series and find additional resources, please visit the Maryland Resource Hub. The Maryland Resource Hub can be located at marylandresourcehub.com. That is MarylandResourcehub.com. We appreciate your feedback and would ask that you take a moment at this time to complete the SurveyMonkey link or use the QR code. The feedback that you provide to us will inform our work in the office as we develop additional resources to support you in the field. Again, thank you very much for your time in completing the feedback. As a reminder, the continuing professional development credits are available to you for this Leadership Preparation webinar series. To receive 1 credit, you will need to view 5 webinars, parts 1 and 2, and complete 3 hours of experience for the webinar. That would include the pre-work, viewing the webinar, and completing the participant's guide, as well as extension activities related to the webinar. To receive 2 CPD credits, you will watch all 10 webinars, parts 1 and 2, and complete 3 hours of experience per webinar. Again, it would include the pre-work, viewing the webinar and completing the participant's guide while watching, and extension activities related to the webinar. After you have completed the work, you will then submit all of the materials to the Google Form link listed. If you need to contact us with any questions for any reason at the Office of Leadership Development and School Improvement, you can contact Ed Mitzel, Executive Director, at edmund.mitzel@maryland.gov. That is edmund.mitzel@maryland.gov, or Dr. Lori Ellis, Coordinator for Leadership Development, at lori.ellis@maryland.gov. That is lori.ellis@maryland.gov.